Good evening, everyone, and thanks again for joining us for this Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first on the hazardous weather chart, we've got wind advisories up here on the eastern Arctic coast. Winds gusting over 40 miles an hour will continue to reduce visibilities a half mile or less in blowing snow. Not much new snow expected there, but blowing snow, and that'll be out through Saturday morning at this point in time. Also have a winter weather advisory here for the west central interior areas, Koyukuk Valley specifically there, and that's out until just 6 p.m. this evening, so only a few more hours on that one. Same conditions, gusty winds, 40, 45 miles an hour, especially the higher elevations, and reduced visibilities in some locations down to a half mile or less. And again, that'll be ending at 6 p.m. this evening. Otherwise, I'll kick it out a little longer. And the high wind warning here remains out Douglas and Juneau area, the greater Douglas and Juneau areas there for those north to northeast winds gusting above 60 miles an hour. Will continue at least through into this evening again, and then slowly diminish later tonight. Seeing gusts to over 60 miles an hour there in Lynn Canal, Eldred Rock, normally a windy area there. Seeing those wind gusts, and again, that'll continue into at least part of the evening, overnight period tonight. And for the satellite imagery today, you can see front rotating northward here, spreading snow, rain and snow, and then just plain rain over the southern southeast coast. Temperatures rising into the 40s down there over the southern areas down toward Dixon Entrance. Then that collides with the cold outflow winds to the north there. So there's a zone of snow advancing northward as well with the lower pressure farther to the south. And for the eastern interior, we've got some clouds here right along the eastern Alaska Range and into the Tanana Valley, White Mountain areas there with clear skies both to the north over the Yukon Flats to the eastern Brooks Range and also to the south here. Copper River Basin looking pretty good today, southward into the North Gulf Coast. Then we pick up some more clouds out here just to the west with one trough right through here and areas of snow. Rain and snow showers, Kodiak Island, mostly snow here streaming into northeast Bristol Bay, Kachemak Bay, and those areas right up into the portions of the, Kuskokwim Valley areas to about the Alaska Range, and some areas of light snow showers scattered northward here on up toward the Brooks Range. Otherwise, basically dry for the Arctic coast there. Maybe a flurry or two scattered. That's about it. Nothing significant. And again, the gusty northeast winds up in that area. And then out here over the Bering Sea, we've got cold air that has dropped southward, as you can see by the gray shaded areas here, picking up moisture off the over the open waters there of the Bering Sea with snow showers out in that zone, and then the next front here pushing wind and rain and snow into the western Aleutians, approaching the cirrus shield there, approaching Adak here during the afternoon hours. Just some wispy cirrus at this point in time. You can see the thicker cloud deck just back to the west there and a very well-defined back edge to that front farther on out to the west. Fairly active system. Otherwise, we've got clearing up here over the northwest coast. Some clouds trying to work in there, but offshore flow basically up in this area. Not a bad day over the Seward Peninsula. And even over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, there's a trough out there and some snow shower activity on the chart here that pushed up south of the south coast of the Seward Peninsula. So dry for Nome, White Mountain, and those areas there. But you pick up the snow, St. Lawrence Island, snow showers southward to St. Matthew Island, scattered across Nunivak Island there, as well as the Yukon Delta. And then a band here with this trough of snow and snow showers, probably a little bit narrower than what I've got drawn here, but general location right on down into northeast Bristol Bay, Kachemak Bay, and those areas cutting across the Kuskokwim Valley. And then the blowing snow, as I mentioned, going on over the west central interior here, especially the higher elevations. But again, those winter weather advisories will end this evening as winds and conditions improve a little bit there. Front out to the west, again, the gusty winds, gale force winds, rain and snow with that system. And then the one here pushing northward, pushing warmer air into the southern southeast coast. But the pressure falls with this system, keeping the gusty winds going. Again, a high wind warning into this evening there for the Juneau-Douglas area. The gusty winds remaining again up to or above 60 miles an hour, even into Lynn Canal. And for tonight, you'll see advance northward here of the snow, and then rain and snow, and then again continued periods of rain over the southern southeast coast. Kind of hard to tell exactly where the rain and snow line will end up, but it'll be moving from south to north, that's for sure, along with the snow. Having trouble reaching the northern areas of the southeast coast there, like north of Juneau, probably will be the cutoff for the snowfall there. Won't reach Yakutat, should stay south of the Cordova area as well, definitely south of the Cordova area with mostly clear skies continuing here. Northern Cook Inlet up into the southeast interior, eastward across the Copper River Basin. A few more clouds through here, maybe some light snow showers developing over the Koyukuk Valley later this evening, but again, winds diminishing and also winds slowly diminishing, but not too fast, actually slowly diminishing here for the southeast coast in that high wind warning area. We'll continue gusty winds along the eastern Arctic coast, at least into early Saturday. Otherwise, lots of snow showers out here over the Bering Sea, continuing weak low center here, right just off the coast, just east of Savunga there. And then snow showers taper off as you head south. Still a risk, though, for the Pribilof Islands. Should be a dry evening, overnight period for the Alaska Peninsula with light winds. A zone of higher pressure, not really high pressure, just a lack of storminess, either because that's off to the east there, and then the next front advancing eastward. Weakening, though, not quite as impressive a gradient with it as today as it pushes eastward, but definitely will bring some increase in the winds and moisture in initially this evening to the central Aleutians, spreading eastward to the Fox Islands late tonight, specifically Nikolsky, less of a chance. Probably have to wait till tomorrow for Unalaska, but then definitely tomorrow morning that spreads eastward. Looks like it'll change to mostly rain for the Unalaska Dutch Harbor area tomorrow afternoon as well as Nikolsky. Snow should work up to the Pribilof Islands with somewhat of an increase in the winds there, with the low center now just north of the Aleutians there, northeast of Amchitka Island, and snow extending back on those northeast winds into Shimei and Attu, but breaking out kind of in between the front as it pulls eastward here for Adak and Atka. May see a little bit of clearing and mostly dry tomorrow, but some more moisture just off to your west. This trough keeps actually pushes eastward here right up to the Alaska Range and extends back to the northwest. So it looks like periods of light snow for the Seward Peninsula areas, possibly trying to push into Kotzebue Sound, but areas like Selawik on up to Kivalina. You're going to stay in the drier, cooler, northeasterly wind flow there, and then the gusty winds continue along, especially the eastern Arctic coast, but even the west side here will be a little gusty. We'll see some breezy conditions as well with less wind for the central Arctic coast. Nice day over the northeast interior. A little bit of a breeze, but nothing significant. Dry conditions right on down into the Copper River Basin. Talkeetna's chance of snow showers late in the afternoon. General increase in the clouds here for southern Alaska. Rain and snow possibly reaching the Kenai Peninsula area. And then back on down to the southwest, rain over the southern panhandle, an area of mixed precipitation, but staying dry even over the northern areas. But those winds coming down, a decrease in those gusty northeast winds. That continues into Saturday. You can see this system pulls off to the east, so just about going mostly clear again. So it'll be back into the fair weather, but a lot lighter on the winds. Definitely, you can see not much of a gradient at all. A little bit, stay northerly there for Northern Link Canal, but definitely well under warning and even advisory levels. And some snow showers and areas of light snow and the increase up here over the northwest part of the state to the central Arctic coast. Dry in the east, but again, those winds continue at least into early Saturday morning. The winter weather advisory for those gusty winds and blowing snow there. Chance of rain and snow showers just isolated there for Kodiak Island, the Barrens, on down mostly south of the Alaska Peninsula. Northeast winds keep it dry here over the southwest coast to St. Lawrence Island. Could be maybe a mostly sunny day, might be a little optimistic there. And then a trough with unsettled conditions out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Lows for tonight, a little below zero here, anywhere from 5 to 10 below up over the Arctic coast into the northeast interior. And then single numbers and teens, central interior 20s down to the south, near 20 along the southwest coast and the Pribilofs, and right around 30 for the eastern Aleutians. Highs for tomorrow. You can see warming into the 40s, lower 40s, all the way up to Skagway tomorrow for the Panhandle. Upper 40s, Cordova, mid 40s, the Sitna Valley, and mid to upper 30s for the Tanana Valley, staying chilly there north of the Brooks Range, highs 5 to 10 on the Arctic coast. And then the lows for, let's see, Saturday morning looking like this, upper teens to upper 20s south of the Alaska Range, probably coldest as usual in the Susitna Valley areas, but mostly in the 20s for the Kenai Peninsula to lower to mid-30s for Prince William Sound, and upper 20s, northern Panhandle, mid-30s down to the south and along the coast there for the Panhandle, and mid-30s for the eastern Aleutians, near freezing out to the west, and right around 20 there for St. Lawrence Island areas. And then the highs coming up for the Saturday afternoon readings, mostly right around 10 for the Arctic coast, maybe a little above, mid-40s, Susitna Valley, and mid to upper 40s to lower 50s for the Panhandle.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving into flying weather here, we can see some IFR up there over the central north slope, and then some marginal VFR breaks out into VFR actually here over probably Prudhoe Bay eastward there, but still hugging the coastline, and then VFR here over the northwest interior areas from Selawik Valley, Kotzebue on up across the Noatak Valley, and then back into the marginal with areas of IFR here from the St. Lawrence Island area down across the southwest coast into Bristol Bay, and more IFR out there over the southwest Bering, mostly north of the western Aleutians, and marginal VFR here in over Prince of Wales Island, scattering out to the north to VFR, Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, North Gulf Coast, Copper River Basin, much of the Tanana Valley, if not all, will be VFR. And for the afternoon, even more so, good VFR central eastern interior, marginal VFR just across the Barren Islands, but and then scattered across Kodiak, VFR Bristol Bay, marginal VFR Kuskokwim Delta, Yukon Delta, right up across the Seward Peninsula, staying VFR here in the northwest, and better conditions tomorrow afternoon over the North Slope areas in the Arctic coast, and then areas of marginal VFR mostly over the central and southern Panhandle. Next morning, Saturday morning, first day of the weekend, we've got areas of marginal VFR scattered here across the central, northern Panhandle area, mostly northern Lynn Canal over toward the border, better down to the south, but marginal hugging the coastline, and then some IFR here, Seward Peninsula, eastern Norton Sound. North Slope looks like some IFR as well, and then a patch there south of St. Matthew Island, and marginal VFR, Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, and from about Adak on out to Shimia with some VFR in between. And for the afternoon, shaping up like this, marginal VFR back in the picture here, western North Slope, and a fair about 2/3 of the Arctic coast, down to into across most of the Seward Peninsula. South side, though, looking VFR to start the day out, as well as, into the afternoon, and then marginal VFR there for the southwest coast. A little bit better out here over the Aleutians, marginal VFR intermixed with areas of VFR. Good VFR here, southern Alaska down to the North Gulf Coast and the Panhandle, and we got some lingering marginal VFR now up along and north of the Alaska Range, also over the White Mountains. Passes shaping up like this, Anatuvik and Adigan, both VFR for tomorrow. Lake Clark and Merrill, occasionally marginal, especially on the western approach. That's where you'll see the lowest conditions, and then better to the east. Same forecast for rainy, marginal VFR, worst conditions, western entrance. Windy though, VFR. And for Isabel, both Isabel and Mentasta will be VFR for the day tomorrow. Friday, Tenita, VFR as well. Portage, VFR, and Chilkoot and White, both VFR. Looking at freezing levels here across the Panhandle, 2,000 to 4,000 feet there, right through about the central Panhandle, 6,000 feet way off to the south. And then the surface, again, hugging the North Gulf Coast and across the south side of the Aleutian Range here in the Alaska Peninsula, and south of the Pribilofs out here over the Bering Sea with the cold northerly flow, keeping it a little to the south there, but still 2,000 feet up around Atka. Icing for tomorrow. Areas of icing here pushing in toward the eastern Aleutians, possibly up to the Pribilofs, and then back to the southwest, Shimmy and Attu. Just some scattered areas of light mixed icing possible up here in the Lotto Hills area, and then maybe in the Bering Strait. Really not too bad of a threat up there. And then some areas here possibly over the southern Panhandle, as well as the Kenai Peninsula, up across and into Prince William Sound, but really nothing very significant. And the jet stream for tomorrow midday at 18,000 feet with the 33,000 foot jet stream wind speeds here. You can see ridging northwest Canada, southeast flow. We also have a trough here into the western part of the state with southerly winds at about 70 knots here. Main jet well to the south of the entire forecast area. And so looking at 9,000 feet, we've got easterlies, east northeasterlies 20 to 25 for the Gulf of Alaska, 25 to 30 out of the east for the Arctic coast, southerlies 15 to 25 here, pick up to about 30, pretty breezy up here over the northwestern Seward Peninsula across into the southern Chukchi Sea, northeast 20 to 25 out over the Aleutians, and some stronger winds along and off the southeast coast. Some of those will get inland up to 35 knots. Say from Sitka on down across Prince of Wales Island, lighter off to the east. Turbulence, occasional moderate chop there for the Panhandle, areas of the western interior, eastward in the central interior, as well as the Fox Islands and the western Aleutians.
Taurus and Gemini. Welcome to Stargazers. I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida.
And I'm Dehne Regas, astronomer from the Cincinnati Observatory. We're here to help you find your way around the sky. You've probably heard of the zodiac constellations like Leo, Virgo, and Aries.
These heavenly signs are well known in astrology, and whenever you check your horoscope, but for astronomers, these constellations made perfect place markers in the sky to track the planets.
That's right, James. The sun, moon, and planets all seem to pass through the 12 constellations of the zodiac. They seemingly make a ring around the Earth, and since the planets never wander from this path, the zodiac acts like a racetrack for the planets.
Well, a really slow motion racetrack. It takes the moon 1 month to go through all the zodiacal constellations, while Saturn takes a whopping 30 years.
Okay, so we're not talking about the Indy 500 up there, but this week we thought we'd focus on two zodiac constellations that are easy to find at night, Taurus and Gemini. Let's show you. Okay, we have our skies set up for about 9:30 p.m. facing west. You'll probably notice two things in the evening sky. Close to me in the northwest is a really bright night light. It's suspiciously bright, and that means it's a planet.
This is Venus, and you'll be seeing it every evening just after sunset for the next several months. And the other thing that will draw your attention is those 3 stars in a row standing near me in the southwest. You've been seeing this star formation all winter, and it's none other than Orion's belt. Around the belt are the stars of Orion, who, with a little imagination, should look like a big hunter.
Now that we've covered the bright stuff, let's look for a bull. I'm talking Taurus the bull. He's about 25 degrees to the right of Orion's belt. Now, do you remember how to measure degrees in the sky? It's easy. Just make a fist and extend it to arm's length, and the size of your fist is about 10 degrees.
So, about 2.5 fists to the right of Orion's belt, you will find Taurus. The constellation itself is one really bright star called Aldebaran. That is surrounded by a fader group of stars forming a V shape.
I see it. That V shape of stars is Taurus's face, with Aldebaran acting as the bull's eye. Taurus then has 2 long horns pointing straight up. Since we have the power over space and time, let's look into the future.
We're advancing one day at a time. Notice that Taurus will get lower in the sky each night, while Venus gets closer to it. By the end of April, Venus will be near the bull's face, so you can say Venus is in Taurus.
Now, locating Gemini is almost as easy as finding Taurus. We're back to this week at 9:30 p.m. facing west, except we need to look a little higher in the sky. Now, there's Orion and his snazzy belt of 3 stars, but to find Gemini, we need to look over his head.
That's right, Dehne. Over Orion's head, you'll find 2 bright stars, the twin stars, you might say. Those are the heads of the Gemini twins named Pollux and Castor. The body and feet of the twins point down toward Orion. If we put the pictures in for these constellations, it looks like Gemini is dancing on Orion's club.
Now, that's not easy to do. And if you have trouble finding Gemini, you can use Orion's 2 brightest stars to point the way. Connect a line from his foot star named Rigel up to his armpit star called Betelgeuse. If you keep going in that direction for another 30 degrees, you'll pass through Gemini and run into Castor.
There are no planets in Gemini, but on April 20th and 21st, the moon will pass through on its monthly rounds.
So, be sure to look for 2 zodiacal constellations this week, Taurus the bull and the Gemini twins.
If you have trouble finding the V-shaped face of Taurus, remember to use Orion's belt to show you the way.
And to find Gemini, use Orion's two brightest stars, Rigel and Betelgeuse, to point you to the location of the twins.
Later in the year, you can look for the other zodiacal constellations like Cancer and Leo and Virgo and Libra, and, well, you get the idea.
In other words,
Keep looking up.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the segment. Today's sea ice analysis showing kind of a advance of the sea ice here with the colder temperatures, cold north winds coming southwestward here. Still sea ice free there, a significant area north of St. Lawrence Island, but expanding southwestward here all the way down into Kuskokwim Bay. And that will continue probably for the next 2 or 3 days or so as it stays, cold air stays in over the area there with the wind directions in a pretty good winds will stay in a good direction to keep the ice advancing slowly to the south and southwest. Moving on to the coastal water forecast, good gales here on the south coast tomorrow. Almost a storm, but not quite. Southeast 45 knots. Minimum gales onto the north, falling back to east 25 there for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Lynn Canal still looking at 45 knot northerlies tomorrow, but they'll be in a downward trend throughout the day, and north 30 for Stevens Passage. Clarence Strait southeast 30 knots. And for Saturday, still slow diminishing of the winds here for northern Lynn Canal at 30, gust 45, still holding on to 30 knots there. Definitely a high-end value there for Stevens Passage, northwest 20 for the Clarence Strait area, and north to northeast at about 20 knots here for the south coast, and then northerlies on up the remainder of the coastline with those seas running about 12 feet, or up to 12 feet. Prince William Sound tomorrow, north winds at 10 knots, seas not bad, 2 feet or less. Same thing for northern Cook Inlet here, light winds, slight seas. South of the Forelands, kick it up to 20 knots with 4-foot seas, just northeast 15 for Kachemak Bay, back up to 20 there for the Barren Islands, on up to the all of the North Gulf Coast here with seas 11 feet. And for Saturday, first day of the weekend, winds stay light, both for Prince William Sound, northern Cook Inlet, 20 knot northerlies here, south of the Forelands into Kachemak Bay, northeast at 20 for the western North Gulf Coast, and the Barrens, north 20 for the eastern North Gulf Coast. And Friday, north 25 knots, a little brisk there on the east side of Kodiak Island. Tomorrow, seas up to 10 feet, lighter for Chillicothe Strait, and 20 knots, Sitkinak to Castle Cape. Southeasterlies here, 20 to 25 knots, blowing across the Alaska Peninsula. Pacific side, seas up to 7 feet and only 3 feet in the Bering Sea side. Light winds, slight seas for Bristol Bay. And then on Saturday, those kick up to 25 knots. So we've got brisk wind small craft advisories, not enough ice for brisk wind advisories. Small crafts there for the Bristol Bay area, northeast 25, 20 knots out of the northeast for the Alaska Peninsula. And small craft advisories, Castle Cape to Sitkinak, northeast up to 25, 30 knot winds now from the northeast along the east side of Kodiak, and then only 20 though for Chillicothe Strait. And out in the Aleutians, we've got southeasterlies, south to southeast, mostly southeast there for the Fox Islands at 25 to mostly 30 knots in that range, and seas running anywhere from 7 to 10 feet, highest of course on the Pacific side of the islands. And back to the west, Adak and Atka, as that front pushes eastward, those will become southwest, fall back to 25 knots, seas 7 to 9 feet, and then back up to 30 knots, a little bit more gradient out there to the west that'll give west-southwest winds at about 30 with seas 12 to as high as 16 feet. And for Saturday, we've got northerlies, north to northwest, 25 to 30, small craft advisories out to the west, really laying down for Adak and Atka. Northwesterlies coming down to about 10 knots there with seas coming down as well, and then 15 to 20 knots, and then into the small craft advisories, easterlies 25 to 30 especially for Unalaska Island, with the seas running 8 to 12 feet. Southwest coast looks like this for tomorrow. Southeast, south of Nunivak Island, but on the light side there, and not too bad even on the north end, 15 knots from the south. Northeast 20, St. Lawrence Island. Light winds out of the east for St. Matthew Island, and a little brisk there for the Perbilofs, east at 30 knots, so seas 6 feet. And then for the Saturday outlook, again, start the weekend out here for the Perbilofs with small current advisories. Easterlies 25, seas 10 feet, even stronger there for St. Matthew Island. Southwest coast, east to northeast, 20 knots, seas 5 to 6 feet. Easterlies at 20 for St. Lawrence Island Saturday. And then for the Arctic coast, pretty uniform wind pattern tomorrow. East 25 knots, so brisk wind advisories the entire stretch all the way down to Cape Thompson to Wales, east 20 knots, just under the brisk wind advisory levels. And then for Saturday, kind of kick it up to 30 knots there. And again, winter weather advisories there for Kaktovik, Barter Island stay out through Saturday, or at least into early Saturday, due to the wind and blowing snow with brisk wind advisories. Cutting off here on the central coast, dropping down to 20 knots on the west side, even further from Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson out of the east, and then they become really light from Cape Thompson on down west at 5, or just about no wind at all. Then for tonight again, got snow moving northward with that trough across the Seward Peninsula and into Kotzebue Sound. Chance of snow or snow showers there, maybe possibly a chance reaching Kivalina. More likely though along this narrow band along the trough off to the southwest across the Kuskokwim Valley. Gradually shifting eastward here, drying out over Bristol Bay. Next system pushing rain, wind, snow toward the eastern Aleutians. Same pattern going on over the Panhandle, except from south to north. Wind warning through this evening for the Juneau-Douglas area. And for tomorrow, again, wet.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.